Welcome to the second instalment of Employing Staffers Like a Rocket Launch. Last time we went through the pre-launch process and how important it was to make sure that your preparation was correct before you actually launch into your recruitment process. So just to recap, the pre-launch process covered off on a couple of key questions that you needed to ask yourself and a couple of key things that you needed to document in detail. So the first one was asking yourself why you're going through that recruitment process in the first place. Understanding that, is it a replacement role or is it a new position due to growth? The second thing was, have you sat down and actually clearly defined what that role actually is and what the expectations of someone in this position are? It's really important that you do so to make sure that you know exactly what that person needs to do to succeed in the role, which will allow them to know what they need to do to achieve. The third thing was, do you have someone in the business currently that you could promote into this position and use as an opportunity for succession planning as well? And the final thing was, do you know what your culture is and can you clearly articulate that to candidates? And also, can you clearly assess someone against that culture to make sure that they're the right culture fit as well? So having gone through that pre-launch process, you are now ready to embark on your the launch process, which is your recruitment phase. Now, essentially, there's two parts to the recruitment process. The first is the actual recruitment, where you're sourcing your new potential employee. And the second part of that is the onboarding process. So once you've found that perfect person, how do you integrate them into your business? So let's talk about the first part of that, the actual recruitment process. Your recruitment process starts with your advertising. Now, a lot of businesses don't understand that advertising for a role is another opportunity for you to market your business. It's another opportunity for you to get your brand and your name out there with the wider community. It's just with a different audience. It's with potential future employees, not only for this role, but for other roles that you may have in the future as well. So when you go through that process, make sure that your advertising is very succinct and it's detailed. Make sure in your ad you have details about who you are as a company, what the role actually is. So detail the expectations of someone in this position, not necessarily what they have to do on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, who the perfect person is. What do they look like? What's their behavioural traits? What will they bring to the role? Clearly communicate who they are so that somebody can connect with that and they will be able to assess, do I have those traits and abilities, not just do I have those skills, both equally as important. So be succinct in your advertising. The second tip is make sure that you're consistent in your recruitment process. For starters, it's really important that you actually have a recruitment process in place. So you're advertising correctly, you're screening applications, you're doing phone screens, you're going through interview process, which may be 1, 2 or 3 interview phase. Make sure you're doing your reference checks as well to do final checks, and potentially do behavioural assessments as well to make sure that you know exactly what that person can bring to the position before you actually make your final decision. So be consistent in the process. One of the key things is we see time and time again businesses have structured recruitment processes in place, but then they're referred a candidate by a colleague or they're referred a family friend or a friend of a friend and they bypass that process. Do not do this. Make sure that regardless of how that candidate came to be introduced to you, you go through their structured recruitment process. Regardless of whether it's a family friend or not, make sure you're interviewing them correctly. Make sure you're doing the reference checks. I can tell you right now it's a lot harder to deal with an employee that's not right for your business if they're related to you or if they're a friend of a friend. So make sure you're getting it right at the start. If they're not the right person for the role, then you need to make that decision as well, which is a difficult one, but you need to make it to benefit your business, because at the end of the day, you're running a business. The final thing to remember in your recruitment process is the actual process doesn't finish when you offer a candidate. You need to understand that going through, or most candidates have to give 2-4 weeks notice. Some senior employees have to give 3 months notice. That's an incredibly long time between when you make the offer and when they actually start. A lot can happen in that time, and we've seen time and time again businesses have not stayed in contact with their future employees or their new employees, and they've been counter-offered by their current employer, or they've lost interest in the role and they've seen something else. If you're finding the perfect person, don't let them get away. Make sure that you put in a communication plan. Make sure you're staying in touch with them on a regular basis. Give them a call during their notice period and see how things are going. Send them a card explaining how excited you are to have them start in the business on their start date. Invite them to staff events if you have the opportunity to do so. If you're having a birthday morning tea, or if you're having an after work dinner, catch up with your team, make sure that they're invited. It gives them an opportunity to get to know the team before they actually start. The other side of things is actually include them on all staff emails. If you're announcing a win to the team, make sure that they're included on that. It's incredibly valued by future employees, and you cannot underestimate the value or the risks that are actually involved in not keeping in contact with them. Current employers will counteroffer and try and entice that person to stay. If they're an excellent candidate, keep in touch. Then we move into the onboarding process. So you found the perfect person, you now need to get them started. Having a prepared induction onboarding process is incredibly important. So the first thing is, as I said, be prepared. Make sure that you've got stationery ready for them. Make sure that you've got their computer set up. Make sure they have an email address. And then the other side of it is make sure that you actually have a structured plan in place and someone is allocated to spending time with them on their first day, to show them around the office, to introduce them to the team, to take them through their training. It's really important that you actually dedicate someone and make it someone's responsibility and job to do that, and have a training plan in place so that person knows exactly what they're doing for the first day, for the first week. That way, you will actually allow them to hit the ground running, and they will start to achieve a lot quicker than someone who has to find their own way around your business and their role as well. The other thing is make sure that all of your HR documentation reflects your culture. So if you're a casual, laid-back culture, make sure that your contracts and your policies are written in a casual language. Don't give them a heavily legally worded document, because it's like a slap in the face and it goes against everything that you're trying to create as well. So you can still get across the right legislative information in relation to industrial relations, etc., in a casually worded document. So make sure that you're doing that, making sure that your HR documentation reflects who you are as a business. And the final thing is ensure that you're actually going through a structured probationary process. Make sure that you're catching up with them regularly. So have a 4-week conversation or have a 6-week conversation. Don't allow things to go on until their 3-month probation meeting and tell them that they're not doing the right job, because you haven't given them the opportunity to improve. So make sure that you're catching up with them regularly and giving them feedback and making sure that you're sort of steering them in the right direction. Because if you're not telling them, they won't know what they're potentially doing wrong. You need to make this work as much as they need to make it work. So make sure that you're assisting them to do so. If you're following this plan, the pre-launch plan, and then the recruitment process and the onboarding process that we've talked about, you have every opportunity of getting it right and making sure that each recruitment process is a huge success in your business. Don't make it a disaster waiting to happen, because it's a lot harder and a lot more expensive to have to deal with performance issues down the track if you're not spending the time and actually getting it right at the recruitment phase. And of course, if there's anything that the What's Next team can help you out with, please don't hesitate to contact any of us on 073845 1111. Thank you.